Hi there, superstars. Hope you guys are all doing well. I am about to go live on Instagram as well. So let me get everybody in here and we will get started. Did you guys have a good weekend? Hope everyone had a fabulous weekend and is doing well. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sunday Night Live. We are live now on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Hope everybody had a fabulous weekend. What'd you guys do? Let me know. I did a little bit of holiday decorating and tried to get in the spirit a little bit with some service projects. What about you guys? How are you celebrating the holidays, especially thinking about the simple fact that so many of us, or so many of you guys, are under stay-at-home orders? Here in Georgia, we are not. But I'm feeling for you in California and other places where you guys are under stay-at-home orders for the next 3.5 weeks. I know how tough that is. I was out there in LA about a month ago, and it's just a very different feel than it is here in Atlanta, and I just, it's got to be tough. So thinking about everybody right now who's got stay-at-home orders and who's really having to make the sacrifice to get this virus under control. But I hope you guys have all had an amazing weekend and you're not having the Sunday scaries. We'll get started. I always like to start with a fun quote, and feel free. This is an open dialogue, by the way, so feel free to jump in whenever you guys want and ask questions. I already have a couple questions from over the weekend that we'll get to in a second. But here's my quote going into the week ahead, because again, we all have a lot going on, different types of pressures, different things on us, whether we're worried about holidays or staying at home or how to celebrate them or the virus, or you may have a loved one that's dealing with the virus. Here's something: you can't have a good day with a bad attitude, and you can't have a bad day with a good attitude. So that's how I'm going into the week ahead, and hoping you guys will do the same. I actually, quite honestly, I don't know how you guys feel, but I kind of felt better. I felt more optimistic. I felt more hopeful. I don't feel as discouraged, maybe as we were feeling over the summer or definitely in the early spring. And I'm not 100% sure what has triggered that optimism, but I think maybe having some things wrapped, maybe having the election wrapped to a certain extent, maybe also having a plan moving forward with leadership. Maybe that's why I feel better. But I'm really positive. I feel good. I feel positive. I feel optimistic and hopeful that we are going to see our way out of this, that we are going to get back to normal and be able to celebrate and be with family and friends the way we want to. So it just takes a little bit more patience and a little bit more hanging in, I think, before we're there. I feel like we just kind of need to get through maybe the next 6 weeks or so. So for those of you who are feeling really restricted, hang in there. We are all in this together and we're rooting for you. Even if you're not under a stay-at-home order, I'm sure you can feel for our fellow citizens and folks across the globe who might be. So hang in there and stay positive and stay hopeful and continue to make the best. It's interesting. Someone was asking me the other day, about the pandemic and what it's meant to me. And when I look back, there have been some gifts, right? We've talked about this before. There definitely have been some gifts for me personally, and definitely for our family, and then definitely for our community. So maybe we, hang on to those gifts and we try to make the best of it as we continue to find our way forward. All right. I like to check in with some headlines. I know some of you are talking about Zoom fatigue. I get that. That is real. I can tell you that for sure. That gets really old very quickly. But let's look at some headlines and see what's going on out there in the medical world for just a second. I won't bore you to tear with these. But all this talk about the vaccines and what the vaccines need to function effectively. We know that there's a lot going on in the vaccine world right now, but I thought this was interesting. And I talked about this in the early days of the pandemic, and I'm talking about it now again because just because there's a vaccine there and a vaccine on the horizon does not mean we throw everything else out the window. It is still so important to pay attention to your immune health, your nutritional health, your stress levels, and so much more. And here's a study that explains why. This is coming out of Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, published this week, and is talking about the role and the needs of immune protection against COVID-19. And their basic summary sentence that I'll read to you says that the data define the role of antibodies and T cells in protection against COVID-19. antibodies can protect. So antibodies are what you guys are getting in the vaccine. That's what the vaccine is all about, is getting some of those antibodies into your system. So the antibodies we know for sure can protect. However, you also need T cells so that if the antibody load does not get to where it needs to get in your body, the T cells can mount the right immune response. Now, not to get too technical on a Sunday night here, but T cells, remember, are the component of your immune system that allows your body to fight invaders and infections. And the T cells are something that we can control. And this is the part to me that is so incredibly exciting, because T cells, again, are regulated by nutrient status, stress levels, hormone levels, all of this stuff, how much you slept. So T cells are something that your body can control, and we need them in addition to a vaccine to really be able to mount a good immune response. So keep that in mind. It's not vaccine or bust. It's still your immune health, your immune health, your immune health matters. And it's so important to pay attention to that. All right. I've got a lot of you saying hello to me. Hello, Kimberly. Hope you're doing well. Gina, I see you as well. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to everybody out there. It's been quite a year, and I feel like we need to celebrate. I feel like we need to cherish the fact that we have made it through a really trying time and really bring in the spirit of the holidays. All right, so that's study number 1. Let's do a couple more. And again, I don't want to put you to sleep, so I'll get through the big ones that I found as I was going through all the headlines earlier today. But just a quick kind of re-emphasis on the state of healthcare and knowing that COVID-19 is affecting really our minority populations the most. So Blacks, Hispanic populations really being the most affected by COVID-19 and having the most complications. There are a number of reasons for this. We already knew there was an access to healthcare issue here to begin with. There was a quality of healthcare delivery. There were food deserts in many regions where both of these populations live, and they're not getting good nutrients and high quality food. So that's another reason for it. And then, of course, their day-to-day is what this article brings up. This is from the Oregon Health and Science University, but their day-to-day is very different, right? It's crowded buses, trains, close quarters when they're doing work in different settings, whether it's agriculture or industry or manufacturing. So those populations getting affected the most when it comes to COVID-19. Now, there are efforts to reduce exposure, but I want us just thinking long-term about health. I think one of the things the pandemic has done is laid bare sort of the weaknesses in our healthcare systems, how we don't really tackle things holistically, right? Really getting to the root of something, helping people put everything together, helping them to move forward on their healthcare journey. It's very difficult to push people forward when they don't understand why they are doing what they're doing. Do you guys not agree? I mean, it's very hard to just go do something when you don't understand the reason behind it. And I find this all interesting because what I am hoping will happen in the years to come is that we really have a good discussion on what needs to happen with healthcare, how we need to shift and change, and what needs to be done differently. For example, there are a group of doctors organizing, I'm blanking on the name, but they're organizing to return the doctor-patient relationship back to what it used to be, when it was a very intimate relationship, where it was something that you as a patient held very dearly and could confide in your doctor. And a 10-minute visit and a 15-minute visit, you're not going to do that, right? I know that from all the work that I've done, that it takes time and it takes communication to really get, first of all, to what's bothering you, but secondly, be able to kind of wind that story together and to put all those pieces together. So the hope for the future is that healthcare will change and that we will see something delivered differently, which ultimately is really what's going to bring healthcare costs down. So that's my hope. That's my heart. I hope we can get there. And we need everyone's voices in that conversation once this pandemic is over. All right, now stay-at-home orders. Anyone here from California? I usually have a lot of folks from California join. How are you guys doing? How are you hanging in there? Your stay-at-home orders went into effect tonight for the next 3 weeks, and it's the majority of California under a stay-at-home order. I'd be so curious to know how you guys are coping and dealing with it. I have so many close friends all throughout the Los Angeles area and even up into Santa Barbara and other regions, really thinking about them and the fatigue that they are feeling and experiencing going into these stay-at-home orders again. And not just them, the children. So worried about our children. I mean, this virtual school and isolation, it is having an impact on them mentally, and we know that they're already behind academically. So this is tough. This is tough on everyone. So again, prayers and hope, and knowing if you're out there in California, and my friends know that too, just really thinking about you guys and rooting for you guys and hoping you guys will come out of this very quickly. All right. Lastly, a little bit of positive news. Britain gets the Pfizer vaccine this week. Can't wait to see what happens with that, how that shifts and changes, shutdowns and lockdowns, how people do with it, right? It's a 2-dose vaccine. And, we're all a little bit nervous about this vaccine. And full disclosure, it's been rushed to market very, very quickly. And so we hope that everybody will be okay that gets it. Again, if it is what we need to break this pandemic and break this cycle of lockdown and isolation and high cases, so be it. But with any vaccine, you want to be careful, right? So, as we'll see how Britain does, but when we're thinking about the vaccine, remember vaccines, if you're going to get a vaccine, any vaccine, I'm not just talking about this one. Hello from Chile. Oh my goodness. Hi there. How are things in Chile? Hopefully better than in some parts of the world, as we're hearing. But let's talk about vaccines for a second. I don't talk about vaccines very often, but let's talk about them. Anytime you're getting a vaccine, you don't want to go in and get a vaccine when you're not feeling well. Okay, so that's rule number one. If you're going to get vaccines, make sure you're well rested, you're well hydrated, you're not going in when you're already feeling under the weather, you're demanding too much of your immune system. And I know you guys are sick of me talking about the immune system over and over again, but just keep that in mind. You want an immune system that is ready to go and ready to handle the vaccine. Secondly, you want to be able to detox some of the things that are in the vaccine that are not so great for us. And there's been a lot of debate about this, and I don't want to get into a debate about vaccinations. But when we're talking vaccines, you do want to be able to break things down, move them through the body. So you want to do things that help that. So again, that's where your greens matter, eating the right foods matter. And then there's something called glutathione. Glutathione is an antioxidant. In fact, I just did a podcast on it that you guys should check out. It's Superwoman Wellness. It's on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. But my last guest was talking about glutathione and how glutathione is a potent antioxidant. It helps the body sort of regenerate, revive. So in our practice at Center Spring MD, what we're trying to do is bring in glutathione pre and post vaccines so that the body is able to handle it a little bit better. So be well rested, make sure you're eating well, make sure you're not fighting a cold already before you get that vaccine, and then think about really upping your levels of glutathione and high dose antioxidants to open up that detoxability for your body so you don't have any negative consequences from the vaccine. So again, a little bit of a different take on a vaccine, but something that's really important to remember as we go into watching Britain as they get their COVID vaccine next week. The hospitals in Britain will get it first. The frontline workers, of course, will get it first, and that's what they've talked about for here in the United States as well. And after that, at-risk populations and then maybe clinics, doctors' clinics like ours will probably be third or fourth down the line. All right, I'm getting a lot of hellos. Hello from Australia. I love this. Hello from Australia. Gabby, I see you. You're on here too. Hello to you. We've got folks from all over the place and all over the world. This is the fun part for me to do this, is to bring everybody together when you guys are so scattered and in so many different regions of the world. All right, so those are my headlines when it comes to COVID. Someday we'll do this, and we will not talk COVID the entire time. But let's get into some of your questions. So I've got some questions right here on Instagram and on Facebook. So I report that the vaccine is only good for 3 months protection. So no, the vaccine, the hope is that we at least get 9 months and maybe more. And I know that's not super encouraging, but there's all this different data on how long we have immunity. Right now, we know for sure that if you have had COVID, for example, you have a minimum of 3 months of immunity and hopefully up to 5 to 6 months of immunity. And they're finding cases where kind of at that 3 month mark or at that 6 month mark, there are people that are then testing antibody negative again. And we've seen that in practice too. But we're just learning more. I don't know how else to say. We're just learning more about immunity and learning more about what it takes to maintain an immune response. So that's why, yes, there's a vaccine. Yes, we have all this new stuff happening. At the end of the day, is going to be your immune system, your immune health that really, really matters. So paying attention to that and using all these resources. We put so many resources out over the last 6 to 8 months, everything from your immune guide. There's now an immunity course on the Dr. Taz site if you really want to dive in and learn a whole lot more. But I want you guys to master this concept of your immune health and understanding how it impacts so many other aspects of your body. It really is your sixth vital sign. And I think when we ignore it and we don't understand all the factors that play into it, then we're grabbing at different things to be the answer, but we're not, again, treating it holistically. We're not getting to that root of what we really need to be doing. Okay, moving on. Let's do a couple of questions. Somebody brought up a question, and I apologize, I don't remember who asked this, but how do you stay hydrated when it's cold outside? That is so my issue. I have this exact same issue because those of you who know me know that I suffer from being cold, and I think it's my iron. My thyroid's fine, but I think my iron runs low. And then when it drops at lower levels, I'm always cold and always saying I'm cold, and don't want to drink cold water. But here's what we can do instead. You can warm up the water. And I've actually been doing that, is drinking like maybe room temperature water or mixing cold and hot water together. You can add a few electrolytes into it or flavor it a little bit if you want to. That is also why I am so tea dependent, because those warm teas are a way for me to stay hydrated as long as I'm not over caffeinating myself and being really careful and picking like herbal teas or decaffeinated teas. That's another way for me to get that water in. So those are some of my tricks and hacks, but I'm right with you. Whoever asked me that question, I am with you. I have the hardest time. In fact, we went to lunch this afternoon and they handed me ice water, and I'm like, I'm not going to touch this. So warm water with a little bit of flavor, teas, cold, warm water mixed up together, so it's not that icy temperature. Those are some of the ways you can stay hydrated during the winter months. And lots of soups, right? Lots of brothy soups. That's another way to get some extra hydration in as well. And I've been craving that stuff right now. I should have shared, and I meant to. I did a really basic chicken noodle soup that took like 5 minutes today. It was so easy to do. But again, it was more liquid than it was anything else. So providing a little bit of hydration in that overall hydration equation that we're all trying to get to. Okay. The next question I had, and I see more coming in over here, is B vitamins. How many of you guys are on a B vitamin? Raise your hand. I know I'm a huge believer. Boost was my methylated B and my hero product on the East West Way line. Started over a decade ago in the practice when I couldn't find something that I really wanted women to be on, and kind of came up with that formula. So the B vitamins are really important. The question I got asked, are the B vitamins triggering acne? Great question. The question in particular was about B12. B12 typically doesn't trigger acne, but B6 for certain people, when that number gets too high, can indeed trigger acne, especially kind of like this perioral dermatitis. I don't know if any of you have seen that before, where you get a lot of like this kind of cystic acne right around the mouth, or these little fine bumps right around the mouth. So keep that in mind. B6 is really the B vitamin to be careful of. B12, we don't see it as much. I've had a few cases of that, but much, much more rare. So those were the two questions I got. All right, I am getting a question on, let's see, am I worried about the side effects of the vaccine? Yes, I am worried about the side effects of the vaccine. I am worried that it has been rushed and pushed forward without maybe enough testing and enough types of testing. I think I would feel less worried about that if I saw the data of what they've done. And I don't think we've seen all of that yet. I think there's been this big rush to market. So yes, I'm worried. But for the folks, like anything, it's not all or nothing. It's not black or white. I think for the folks, I know healthcare workers who are dealing with COVID day in and day out. I know people that are very sick that have multiple medical conditions for whom COVID is not just a cold or a virus that they fight for a couple of days and then it's over, but it is something that's a bigger deal for them. So for them, the vaccine may be something to consider for sure. You're asking if I'm going to take it. I'm not one of those high risk people. So I don't think I'm high priority, and I'm going to be a little bit more focused on my immune system since I'm not a frontline. I don't consider myself a frontline worker since I'm not in the hospital setting. I'm not in the ICU. So that's sort of my take on the vaccines for me. I'm not anti-vaccine by any means, but I do think it needs to go to those who need it most until we learn more about it and then get it out to everybody else. Hopefully that's a good answer. All right. Moving on from vaccine. Oh my gosh, so many people from Australia. I love this. I love that Australia is so wellness oriented. In fact, when we look at our numbers and our statistics, it's the US, Australia, and then I think the third country is Britain. So it's amazing to see what countries are kind of dialed in. All right, now totally veering into a different direction. I've got questions about ADHD from Emmy. Alternatives to Adderall for adult ADHD. All right, that's a good one too. I get asked a lot of that very frequently. How many of you guys are on some sort of ADHD medication? And this has been interesting too, by the way, with a lot of Zoom and a lot of isolation and the lack of boundaries, and then homeschooling and kids. And I mean, everyone's focus and attention is going nuts because they feel like they're being pulled in 20 different directions at any given moment. So with ADHD, adult onset ADHD, here's what I've noticed in practice, and it's certainly not true for everybody, but a lot of it is anxiety. And managing anxiety may be the place to begin before you are so focused on inattention. So, anxiety is often number one. Number two is being overly connected. So, the emails are coming in, the texts are going off, your phone's ringing, and having trouble. And I've even noticed it in me to a certain extent because we have so many different ways to communicate and so many different things to check. You've forgotten how to read a book. Who's read a book recently? It can be really hard to sit and focus and read a book. And so it's almost like we have to retrain our minds to do that again. So begin with thinking about anxiety, begin with a consistent night's sleep, getting magnesium at night, maybe taking a B vitamin in the morning. Those are my anchors for attention and for focus and for anxiety and honestly for hormone health too. And then move from there into things that we know help focus. So phosphatidylserine is one, omega-3 fats are another. The pairing of phosphatidylserine and omega-3s historically after 30 days has been shown to help with ADD and ADHD. So that might be something to try as well. And then for women, and honestly men too, but for women, really looking at your hormone levels, because we know when the progesterone levels are low, then pregnenolone, which is the brain progesterone, is often low, and that too can trigger ADD and ADHD, brain fog, not being able to kind of get through your material. So my short answer is B vitamins, magnesium, phosphatidylserine, omega-3s, consistent sleep, and get those hormones checked. Oftentimes doing other things that calm the nervous system down, cool this brain that can often be on fire is helpful. And that's acupuncture, craniosacral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. These are things that rewire and retrain the brain to help it to sort of focus and relax. And then again, overburdening yourself, having too many lists and too many things to do is always going to trigger ADHD and anxiety, adult onset ADHD for sure. So hopefully that's helpful in trying to battle that. And I think I got most of the questions in. All right, I want to remind you guys, we talked about the vaccine. We talked about that. Let's see if there's anything else. Where are we? Why? Maybe this is a why, not a where. Why are we so addicted to our phones? Have any of you guys watched The Social Dilemma? I watched it the other day. It is fascinating. I highly recommend that you guys watch that. So it talks about how the technology in our phones has been designed, everything from color, from programming, and so much more. It's been designed to keep us on these devices. So, like, you guys might text me a question, and then you see the little bubble come up waiting for me to respond. All of that is a way of keeping us sort of in so tied to the phone. Like, what's going to happen next? Where are we going to go? What's going to, so The Social Dilemma was fascinating in that, it's really tying us to our phones. It is programmed in a certain way to elicit a dopamine response. So just like when we go and eat sugar or carbs, or we have a feel good comfort food and we feel good for a period of time, right? Even though it's short. Well, that's what our phones are doing. So it's feeding that dopamine response. And for that reason, it's so addictive. So for our kids, can you imagine what it's doing to the kids? I'm so tired of talking about what it's doing to children and how their young developing brains are being affected, by all of this. So for us, at least, boundaries, leaving your phone in the car, leaving your phone in a place where you can't get it, keeping it away at mealtime, those are things that we can do instead, to kind of break that cycle of addiction, turning your phone off, turning notifications off. These are all things you can do. So you're just not constantly like being fed, sort of like Pavlov's dog, to be wired to keep going to the phone. And it's a problem for adults, and it's definitely a problem for children as well. So great question. Huge problem. And the other thing in the social dilemma that I thought was so interesting, they talked about how I think phones came about where everyone kind of had one and everyone was using them 2010 2011 or so. And in the charts they show the escalating rates of anxiety, suicide, eating disorders in our girls from that time. It has literally quadrupled, maybe even more than that, in the 7 to 8 years that have passed. So this is a real problem for our children, and it's definitely a problem for us as well. And I got to be honest, I'm on social media, as you guys know, and so I have to be careful about not wanting to be on there all the time and knowing when to cut off and knowing when to share things and when not to share things. And it takes a lot of discipline. And I do think there needs to be some sort of regulation, at least for our kids, where you have to be 13 or 14 before you're allowed to get one of these devices, because it takes so much discipline, to really understand the boundaries there. So that's my thought on phones. All right. I don't see any other questions on here. We talked about the holidays. Now a new guide is out. So for those of you who have joined the tribe, you will get that in your inbox probably this Tuesday, but my holiday gift guide is out. So check that out. It's for the wellness enthusiast, for the healthy family member, for whoever it is in your family and you're having trouble figuring out that perfect holiday gift. I've got tons of great ideas in there, some stuff that maybe I want for myself too, but lots going on in the world of tech, in the world of fitness, the world of nutrition. It's been fun to see the wellness industry grow, maybe to become slowly and surely much more practical, really, and more sort of easier to manage and easier to bite off with all these new things that are out there. Everything from food subscriptions to gadgets to home workout equipment, all that other stuff. So check out my holiday gift guide. It should be in your inbox if you're a part of the tribe this Tuesday. If you're not a part of the tribe, what are you waiting for? Join the tribe. We have so much fun. You guys get webinar access. You have all guide access. All the guides end up in your inbox. You get early discounts, sneak peeks to different things as well. And then we also do a lot of our detox and challenges together, along with access to a private Facebook group. So check it out, and we will have a lot of fun there. All right, I'm still getting questions. And I tell you what, we'll answer some of these maybe at our next live, because someone's asking me about perimenopause and menopause and how to take care of yourself. We could talk about that probably for 3 hours. So why don't we save that one for next time? But those are interesting times for women when their hormones are fluctuating all over the place and having trouble balancing them. But there's a lot to it. There's an art to it. There's a science to it. And there's certainly not a one size fits all approach to it. So I promise we'll tackle that next. Okay, let's see. I think we got all our questions in. I'm going to end with a prayer. I had this idea. I hope you guys will all join me. It's been a rough year. Yes, 2020 has been tough on everyone. I want to usher in 2021, not with the whole, let's start fresh, brand new year. This is what I usually do. I have calendars and calendars of things, and this is everything I'm going to accomplish in the year ahead. I'm not doing that this year. This year, what I'd like to do is be thankful for all the gifts and the blessings in my life, for the things that have come together, for all of you, for my family, my work family, for so many people in my life that have really made my life incredible. And I just feel incredibly blessed. So I want to bring 2021 in with prayer and hope and optimism. And this is not one faith over another faith. So send me your favorite prayers. I want to post them. Today, I'm actually going to end with a Hindu prayer. So let's start here. And again, I've translated this. This is typically in Sanskrit, which I don't want to butcher because that would be really sad. But here it is. May everyone be happy. May everybody be free from disease. May everybody have good luck, everybody, and may none fall on evil days. I hope you guys have an amazing week ahead. Have a great Sunday night, and I will see you guys soon, and we'll pick up here again next week. Take care.